Welcome back to another episode of Housing Solutions of New York's podcast, One Step Away, a safe space to transform lives one step at a time. I am your host, Dr. Zalex Rivera. I'm excited to be here. I feel like I haven't recorded in a while, so I feel like we're going to have an extra good time today with the guests that we have. But today, this morning, I have a very special guest, and I'm going to give a little context on Housing Solutions, and I'm going to explain why I invited her to come talk to me today. Housing Solutions of New York, when we recently had went through a rebrand, we decided that we wanted to be on the side of ending homelessness. And the best way to end homelessness is to find viable housing solutions. One of the major housing solutions is finding supportive and or affordable housing. We've always been members of an organization called Supportive Housing Network of New York, but most recently, last July 2025, we did a takeover of a previous portfolio, and we took over more than 200 supportive housing units throughout the 5 boroughs. So we did a mass jump into the space of supportive housing, and so that has really given us some new foundation and new groundwork, and we're going into these spaces, and we're enjoying ourselves with Shinny as a wonderful partner as we advocate and we try to get more legislation, more movement, more housing, more everything. So today, I invited my good sister Tierra, who is the Director of Policy and Advocacy at Shinny. Tierra, you with me?
Yes. What's up, sis? How you doing?
Hey, girl.
Hey.
So I told y'all we was gonna have a good time. So y'all already feel the energy that we have going on right now. So sis, talk to the people, right? Tell them who you are, your history with Shinny, how you started, where you're at now, how you see Shinny. Give me the whole, I don't want to call it elevator pitch. I want more than an elevator pitch. I want the whole gamut, okay?
I got you. Well, thank you so much for inviting me here. It's so good to be here. Welcome to the supportive housing world. We're so glad that you guys took over that portfolio. Still trying to get you some tenants in your units for sure. We'll work on that. But yeah, I've been with the network now for a little over 7 years, and I manage our New York City policy and advocacy work. I, serve as the direct point of contact for our members who are operating supportive housing in New York City. I also serve as the co-chair for the New York City Continuum of Care, which is one of the largest, if not the largest, kind of on par with LA, California, the largest continuum of care in the nation. So I've been working within the supportive housing field for over a decade now. I started out my career in this field in supportive housing, managing the Ithaca Tompkins Continuum of Care. I had a small portfolio of like $100,000 COC grant, managing like 6 programs. It was very small, but it really helped to open up my eyes to the world of supportive housing. And from there, it was kind of off to the races. I started working really closely with the local legislature and Common Council, and then I did my very first national lobby day with the National Alliance to End Homelessness in July of 2018. That was my very first national lobby day, and I was actually, the network organizes that lobby day in DC for the Alliance as the state captains. They've been doing that for a long time. And I was in a meeting. This is my real claim to fame. I'll tell you this. This is my claim to fame. So I did the lobby day with the network. Was doing a variety of meetings. I was talking about my professional capacity as the lead of the COC, but I was also talking about my personal history, right? Like growing up, being on Section 8, being a single mom, being on Section 8, having that experience helped me go get my bachelor's degree as a single mom, and like really propelled me into self-sufficiency. So I was talking about my personal experience, but also my professional experience. And my very last meeting of the day was with then House Representative Lee Zeldin. You guys know you know Lee Zeldin? You familiar? From Long Island? So I don't even care. I'm putting him on blast because this actually happened. So we're in this meeting, right? I'm doing my little pitch. And I had my hair cut short like this at the time too. And Lee Zeldin stops me in the middle of the thing, and he was like, damn, doesn't she look like a real badass, like superwoman, like Catwoman, like Halle Berry and Catwoman? Or it was the most, I can't even remember exactly what he said, but it was the most ridiculous set of sentences and the most like offensive set of sentences that he could have said. And I remember my reaction being like very professional. And I was like, you know what? Yes, yes, Congressman, I am here. I'm here to be a superwoman for Section 8 and people on rental assistance. And then it was after that meeting that Rebecca, who's been with the network for almost 10 years, and Steve came up to me and they were like, I'm so sorry that happened to you. I can't believe that he said that. That was so offensive, yada, yada. And then like a month later, they called me to take the job at the network.
Well, look at
So
that. Well, look how that worked out. You became the superwoman of Section
of
8.
supportive housing, the superwoman of Section 8, the superwoman of supportive housing. I was like, I will
that's a pretty
never
cool
forget
story,
that.
though. That's a pretty.
Yeah,
Sometimes we always got to turn awkwardness into a victory for
absolutely.
us.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm like, if Lee Zeldin hadn't completely like turned that
Right.
into the
Then you
most
might have
awkward
never.
moment, then I might have never started working with the network. Here I am.
Well, shout out to them. So I see now that you're with policy. Well, you've always been with policy and advocacy. We started. Obviously, you said you was the superwoman of supportive housing and Section 8, all that kind of good stuff. So what drives you?
Yeah.
Talk to me about what drives you. What keeps you motivated? Because when you're driving policy and when you're advocating, that can be a very it's very rewarding, but it also can be very mundane. It can be very repetitory. It can be a lot of these different things. So talk to me about what
Yeah.
keeps you motivated and why policy and advocacy.
Yeah, that's a great question. So just yesterday, we had our third annual New York City Council Virtual Lobby Day. This was a lobby day that I instituted a couple of years ago because we had always done that in Albany, but we didn't really lobby the New York City Council in a cohesive way that we were like coming out, showing our power in New York City. And we had 120 residents, 120 registrants. Over half of those were supportive housing tenants. And we had over 20 meetings with New York City Council members. And the energy, the excitement, the emotion in all of those meetings from supportive housing tenants, from our providers, from our members, that's what drives me. That's the most fun part of the day. And I say like that very first lobby day in DC, I felt so energized. Like you're running around the Capitol, you're meeting with people, you're sharing your story. It's like, it's impactful theoretically, right? Sometimes it's supposed to
No,
be
I mean
impactful.
it's impactful. Yeah. It's impactful on both sides for
It's
sure.
exciting. It's exciting for me. It's exciting for me to be able to translate experience into policy, experience into advocacy. And days like yesterday, days like our lobby day and for those of you, I don't know when this is coming out, but it was March 5th, right? That's yesterday. Our lobby day that we do in Albany in February, every time I get to go down to DC and share not only my personal experience, but share the experience of our supportive housing workforce, the tenants in supportive housing. That's really what drives me. Opening up those spaces, getting people in front of their legislators, in front of the policymakers, and really working together and collaboratively to drive change, man. That does something to me, It really does.
Like it gets you going, huh?
Clearly. I'm like, oh, I'm so excited to talk about advocacy.
Advocacy.
Sometimes the policy is like, oh, you gotta read through this piece of legislation. You gotta try to figure
Listen,
out what the
policies
words
are
mean.
hard to read through sometimes, and that's the other thing.
Yeah,
Like some people, are like like, "Oh, let's write this policy." It's like policies are not easy to write, first of all, let
no,
alone easy to read, and they're designed that way on purpose to some
yeah,
degree.
yeah. And
But
I'm not a
advocating for
lawyer.
people, yeah, me neither. Advocating for people who especially can't advocate for themselves, or that they aren't in spaces that they can speak up to that magnitude for themselves, can be very empowering. I know one of the things that people always ask me every time they ask me what I do, and then I got to break it down. They're like, "Wow, that's rewarding," and you're like, "It is," but there's also the behind the scenes things, right?
Yeah,
The motivating the client to get out of this funk that they're in, the
yeah,
motivating the tenant now on the supportive housing side to actually pay their rent, right? And not be in
yeah,
rental arrears, and keep their apartment clean. Like all those kind of things still require like internal motivation, but then also on the outskirts, I have to even advocate for, I have a really innovative director of supportive housing. And so she comes from the shelter side. So sometimes, some things roll over where she's like, can we do this? And I'm like, that's shelter world. That's not tenant world, right? But
Yeah.
then she also has some really great ideas where she wants to host like Father's Day events. And as simple as
Yeah.
that sounds, right? That's also costs money. That sometimes isn't in the budget. But sometimes it's like, you know what? Let's try it. Let's see if we can get some donors. Let's see if we can work with other community advocates. Let's see if we can get some of our elected officials to chip in, where we're
Yep.
able to give, these fun moments, right? These people that are living in supportive housing, the key word to it is supportive, right? And so even though they're in independent living, they still need support. And every now and again, they might need community. They still need, people to talk to, right? It's
Absolutely.
because we all
Absolutely.
do, right? Like, you remember getting your first apartment, sis,
Yeah, I
in
do
life?
remember getting my first. Yeah, yeah. I was
And
14.
needed right, and needed community at some point, even though you thought
Yeah.
we all thought we were grown when we moved out. It's like, yeah, but you still kind of need this and you still kind of
Yeah.
need that. So
Yeah,
we
yeah.
totally get it. All
Yeah, I
right,
do.
so since working with Shinny, because you're currently now in the role of director of policy and advocacy, where were you before that? Like, where did you start and then get to director of
Yeah.
policy and advocacy?
Yeah, yeah. So when they first called me up after that Lee Zeldin moment, my direct supervisor, our chief policy officer, was like, I was so impressed by the way you handled that meeting. Like, do you want to move? Do you want to upend your existence where you are, move down to back to New York City and come work with the network? And I was like, sign me up, sis. Like, yes, I'll do that. And I was like, if I want to work in this world, where else to sharpen your skills? Where else to really advocate for people other than New York City, which has the largest homeless population, again, outside of like California. So I did that, and I started off as but I started off as a policy analyst. I had not really done policy work, right? I wasn't really even sure what that meant. I was doing grant
Yeah.
writing. I was doing regulatory compliance. I was like working with legislators, but more updating them on the programmatic aspect of things, managing the COC, and really starting my career in policy where I was living in Ithaca. And so I kind of like moved down to the city, fresh out the frying pan into the fryer, like into the fire. I was just like, fish out of water. But I started there as a policy analyst, and really just kind of just got the ball rolling. I was able to pretty much turn the I don't want to say turn the position into what I wanted, but I had the encouragement and the flexibility to explore and have ideas and innovate, and that was really promising. And then COVID happened, and as together we rallied as a team. I got promoted to senior policy analyst and then associate director of advocacy, because I started just doing some of the advocacy work, and then
Yeah.
ultimately director of policy. But that took obviously years of building trust within the organization, but building trust within our membership, building trust within the workforce, building trust with our government partners that I was building relationships with through DOHMH and DSS and HRA and HPD, and really making those efforts. I was working really closely with City Council over that time during COVID, and working with them to polish up some legislation that ultimately got passed, and those sort of little moments ultimately led to the organization recognizing my leadership and promoting me up to director of policy.
Nice. Let's talk about the organization as a whole. Talk about the big picture of Shinny for a second, right? Like,
Yeah.
what is Shinny so people properly understand it? And then how does Shinny support providers and vice versa?
Yeah, so I'm just gonna say we call it the network.
And everybody else calls it Shinny. Let me change
Everybody,
my
I
language, right?
know, I know, no,
Everybody else is like, nah, you're going to Shinny's this and Shinny's that. And then we
I
talk
know
to
it's
somebody from
hard.
Shinny and they're like, yeah, you coming to the network? And we're like, what
I
are you
know.
talking
When
about?
I started, we were trying to change it from Shinny to the network, and then that didn't really stick with the rest of the community, right? So that's what it is. So I'll give you
Right.
my spiel. We are a membership organization representing 200 nonprofits that develop, own, and operate supportive housing across the state. We have about 170 corporate and affiliate members. Those are affordable housing developers from or statewide COCs, right? It ranges. Collectively, our members operate about 65,000 units of supportive housing and counting, with over 40,000 of those being in New York City alone. We were founded in
Right.
1988 on the vanguard of the supportive housing movement. So, a couple of nonprofit providers who were providing supportive services, but also providing housing, decided to come together and say, why don't we do both of those? Why don't we come together and do both of those things? And so the supportive housing model was effectively birthed here in New York City, and we were on the vanguard of that movement. So the very first providers who were operating supportive housing also was the formulation of what would ultimately become the network. And we do a variety of things, right? Primarily, our goal is to advance the model of supportive housing through the proliferation and the sustainability and preservation of the model throughout the state. And that's really our goal. And is to make sure that our nonprofits have the resources that they need to provide services adequately, to serve their tenants, to keep their workforce happy, and to make sure that they're solvent. We do that through public education. So right now there's a lot of public education that has to happen around supportive housing. There's a lot of conflation with supportive housing and shelter, supportive housing and other levels of care on the continuum. So a lot of what we do is that public education. Obviously, advocacy is our primary function. So we advocate on the city, state, and federal level for the policies and budgets that will advance the model of supportive housing across the state, and then ultimately nationally, right? So New York, if you're doing something well in New York, that is going to trickle out into the rest
Yeah,
of the
that's
country,
the
right?
that's the model across the whole
Exactly.
country.
Exactly. So we work very closely with our national partners to again advance the model. We do a lot of technical assistance. So talking about our relish program, our professional development programs, that was
Yep.
relatively new, but workshops, best practice guides, research, publications. We started the State of Supportive Housing Report a couple of years ago, very first report of its kind in the nation, or in the state rather, that looks at every single program that's funded in supportive housing and what that looks like. We're looking at tenant demographics. Next, we're looking at capital. So we're providing
Yeah.
information to the public and to our members and to policymakers. Um, what did I hit? I hit technical assistance. I hit public education.
Information, community building.
Information.
We done did like I mean
Yeah, it's all of the
all the things.
above. Yeah, but lastly, I'll say that it's actually our job to our members come to us with problems. Oh, I can't fill this unit, or I'm having a contract issue, or can you find this information about this particular regulation? And it's up to us to determine, is this a one-off or is this more systemic? Is this something that we can help you with just by elevating your concern to your contracting agency, or do we have to actually create some new sort of system-wide recommendation that's going to improve the delivery for the sector overall? And so that's what we
Yeah.
do.
One thing you mentioned in the beginning was that you started off somewhere in continuum of care, COC.
Mm-hmm.
I know COC is a big conversation right now, especially with the
Yeah.
political climate that we are in this country, how some things are being impacted, budgets, financials are being cut, contracts are being cut. However,
Yeah.
speak a little bit about COC, the benefits of COC, and if Shinny is doing anything around, I don't want to say securing COC, but anything around,
Yeah.
ensuring COC, let's say.
Let's say saving the COC, because right now it's
Yeah,
under
let's
threat.
say
We are trying to save the
trying to
COC.
save it.
Yeah. So honestly, the COC is like kind of, if you know, you know. A lot of people haven't heard. If you're not steeped in the world, you have no idea what the continuum of care is. But
Very
essentially,
true.
it's the primary mechanism for supportive housing funding that the federal government provides to communities. And so every community across the nation has some version of a continuum of care, and it's a competitive grant making process that allows federal funding to flow into communities. I guess that's the easiest way that I can say that. And it supports permanent supportive housing, which is, permanent housing, wraparound support services, voluntary services. People pay 30% of their income on rent maximum. Services are voluntary. You're in independent living. You have a lease. It supports a new program called Rapid Rehousing, which provides short-term rental assistance and support services to help people, kind of a step-down approach, to help people get into housing more rapidly in the private rental market. To some extent, emergency shelter and some transitional housing programs. And for the last several years now, last decade or so, the federal government has been prioritizing permanent supportive housing as the primary mechanism to disrupt the cycle of homelessness, right? Before, we were doing a lot of transitional housing. You do transitional, get people ready for housing once they exit emergency shelter or street or some other institutional setting. You do transitional, and then you get them to permanent. But we saw, that it actually works better if you kind of meet people where they are, get them into housing, and then set them up to, do all the other things that they need to do. Right now, the federal government has set out their priorities for the continuum of care and for addressing homelessness across the nation. And they are deprioritizing permanent supportive housing. Essentially, what they are saying is that folks don't need this permanency. What you need to do is move them from reliance to self-sufficiency. And this is I'm saying that in kind of air quotes, right? Because they are not addressing a lot of the other underlying root causes of homelessness, right? Affordability, employment, access
to resources,
mental health, all of the
overall
things.
health.
They're not addressing any of those things. Essentially, what they're saying is you got 2 years and then that's it. So they're proposing significant cuts to the continuum of care. Right now in New York State, the state receives about $326 million in COC funding, which seems like a drop in the bucket given the state budget. But for some municipalities in New York, that funding is the primary funding for supportive housing, for rapid rehousing, for rental assistance in their communities. And if that funding goes away,
when I was in San Diego, I was meeting at the national level. I was meeting other people from other parts of the world. Somehow I ended up on the COC track. I'm not sure if I clicked that or I just got there by default. Nonetheless, I'm in the track because, as you know, I have a COC contract, and I find it to be one of the more challenging contracts. Not so much the actual program itself, but like the referrals and the this and the that.
Yeah.
Needless to say, I'm in the room with people from like Arkansas and Ohio and Charlotte and, all these places. And as they were talking, I realized that was their only source of helping the unhoused population. And so like at the end of it, I literally had to ask a direct question and say, wait, let me get this straight. In, Colorado, what is the housing option? They said we either have public housing or we have COC. And that's when it clicked for me. I'm like, oh, well, maybe because New York State is just like the mecca of all, we have every voucher of every concept that we could think of. Plus we have COC. I'm more talking about New York City, not New York State. That, the COC opportunity is more like one of the many.
Exactly.
Versus in other parts outside of New York City, it is not one of the many. It is this or that.
Yep. That's exactly right.
It more challenging. It's literally this or that. So the fact that they want to cut said funding or they constantly attack said funding, it just is scary for the rest of the nation.
Absolutely. And not only are they trying to cut the funding, but they're drastically changing the way that the program has been operating, right? So we've been operating under a housing first, harm reduction approach, right? Services are voluntary.
Yep.
You don't have any work requirements. You're really trying to get people stabilized, right, and get them the services that they need, so that eventually and inevitably, or not, right, permanent. Supportive housing is permanent housing, but they are drastically proposing. They're proposing drastic changes, right? They are proposing service requirements, right? So you have to participate in treatment. You have to work unless you meet some other like disability criteria or age criteria limitations. They're imposing strict requirements on the nonprofit themselves. Like if your nonprofit has been trying to advance racial equity initiatives that the former administration actually was requiring, right? Your COC used to require you to address racial inequities. If you were doing that at all, then you could be in danger of losing your funding. So there's a lot of ways that they are attempting to strip away funding from the supportive housing community, nonprofit providers, and from the people who rely on this rental assistance and service funding, and take it away from major take it away from major blue states. Like, maybe I shouldn't say all this.
Yeah, that is, I mean, that's so obvious. It's like, oh my God, that's so obvious. Just based on your experience, what model, and I know you may not think one is better than the other, but which one do you think works best with the person experiencing homelessness? Do you think it's a housing first model, or do you think it's rapid rehousing?
Well, housing first is not a model. Housing first is a philosophy. When we say housing first, what we mean is like you are connecting the individual regardless of where they are in their journey. You're connecting them to the appropriate housing resources, and you're making sure that they have adequate wraparound services that go with that, right? So that's what we say. You're reducing the barriers to accessing housing by reducing the paperwork barriers. There are no you don't have to be in treatment. You're reducing these barriers,
right?
But also putting them in the appropriate setting, and making sure that they have the adequate resources. So housing first, again, philosophy, more philosophy, less a model, is just is operationally how we would like to be, right? Making sure that they have the adequate resources. I'll be honest with you, I'm not a big fan of the rapid rehousing model. Unless you get people set up with a long-term voucher. If I had my way, okay, are we on the same page then?
Yes, that's
it's like it doesn't. It makes. It makes no sense. Obviously, permanent supportive housing, I think, is one of the best disruptors of cyclical homelessness, generational homelessness, and chronic homelessness. But again, if I had my way, I think we would do universal rental assistance. We would do making sure that programs like Section 8 or some more locally funded rental assistance programs are available. And not sort of, we wouldn't be operating from this deficit approach, right? And everybody who was income eligible would be able to receive a rental voucher, and we would have a private market that accepted those and destigmatized that. So you literally took it out my brain. I always frequently have these. I don't want to call them great debates, but I typically have great conversations. Let's say around. Housing first and rapid rehousing, particularly around the fact that I sometimes feel that the housing first philosophy and concept or model, whoever's listening, who wants to take the word at the end. Yeah, sure.
They don't use it the way it was defined in the evidence-based definition, right? I think a lot of people literally take those two words and think that that's all that's supposed to happen, and then you just leave them
housing
alone.
only.
And I'm like,
housing first became housing only.
Housing only first. Yeah, it's like, you're supposed to get somebody housing, right? And yes, if everybody had something safe to sleep and eat, then but the point of housing first is the services. And a lot of times in most of our systems, the services are not part of the philosophy or the model or the framework, again, whatever word whoever's listening wants to use. Versus sometimes I feel like we say housing first and then we're doing rapid rehousing. You know what I'm saying? So it's almost like you're just constantly moving a person, right? But you're like, no, it's housing first and the housing, and then we're like housing first. Yeah. And then you're like, and then you just put them out, And then it's like, now what?
Your rental assistance is done.
What is exactly? Go back and reapply or go figure it out. And I'm like, no, which I think is why, which is why I think supportive housing is just a very dope concept. And I've always thought that throughout my career.
I love that.
That it is a very dope concept, because there are people that when you come through shelter, yes, there are some people that this is just flat out hard times, right? That is just like slum landlord, maybe a fire, maybe a flood, but you're working and you just need temporary and you're back on it, right? You can just get the voucher and bounce back independently. You might have family support or whatever. That makes sense for the independent person. And then you have other persons who just need more assistance. It just comes that way, right? And when you can place, and then we have such ideal clients that you're like, oh, you'd be perfect for supportive housing. Just being able to have this is more for congregate, but being able to have like somebody to just go downstairs to and ask the question, right, with no judgment, no whatever, being able to go downstairs, get the services that you need, which is really the housing first model. All those kind of things is sometimes what people need, but it never meant they should stay with me. The only hiccup I have is that the criteria sometimes for supportive housing has to be like chronically homeless. And I don't always agree with that. I don't always agree with that little small caveat, because I've had clients throughout my years that they were perfect for it, right? Like, I don't know, let's say, they just couldn't work anymore and they got SSI, but they need the support. I don't know, I made that up. But they don't have enough years of being unhoused, or years being. And now that poor person has to just lay with me, just has to stay with me for a year.
Okay, let me dispel this. Let me hear it. Let me dispel this. If you're talking about your COC contracts, you do not have to be chronically homeless. That is a prioritization, but it's not an eligibility criteria. I hope my director
hears you say that on the call when she listens in.
I'm going to come talk to you about it. If it's COC, it's a prioritization, not eligibility criteria. Now, how they're giving those referrals to you in cabs is a whole different story. So, however, if it's an NYC 1515 contract, then that is an eligibility criteria. And so we kind of in New York, we people heard chronicity and was like, that's it. You got to be chronically homeless. But that's just that's a prioritization, not eligibility. You should not be turning people away or leaving requiring them
to wait it out.
To get that extra day of homelessness because they're not chronic, right? That's a prioritization tool that, even in the grant, it says, are you prioritizing chronicity? Yes, we're prioritizing, but there are 4 other categories of homelessness via the federal government. It's literal homeless, DV, all the, at risk, 4 other categories. So you're supposed to be able to go, right? If we don't have a chronically homeless person, we're going to go to literal homeless, and that would be your client. Your client would be literally homeless and would be able to go in there. 1515, though, everybody heard chronicity and ran with it, and now that is an eligibility criteria. However, in New York City, we have enough chronically homeless people to
we have more than enough, actually. Let's shift gears a little bit. A lot of times in the nonprofit space, you typically have emerging leaders, because nonprofit is a space where you either get your second chance. If it's not already your passion, maybe growing up, right? Then you get your second chance.
Is it people's passion? Is nonprofit
Let me tell you,
passion growing up?
I don't know. I know for me,
I'm gonna work in the
I thought I was going to be a journalist. I told this a couple episodes ago. I thought I was going to be a journalist, but I went to undergrad during a time when we went to that first war. I want to talk about the first war of my time, not the first war of anybody who's listening. I think it was like Iraq, or like right after 9/11 is when I went to undergrad, and I'm just like, I'm not going to be the one in the desert with the bombs behind me and the umbrella blowing. So I decided journalism wasn't for me. And then I ended up having a friend who worked in shelter. She sent me the internal postings. I landed a job and I fell in love. I was in Wards Island and I thought this was the best thing ever. And I was like, oh my God, I could do this now. I didn't know I would do it for 16 years, but I just, fell into my passion. So that's what I'm saying. Whether somebody had the passion growing up, you fell into it, or maybe this nonprofit sometimes is a space of second chances, right?
For sure.
You get a lot of emerging leaders that come in because, you might have had a bachelor's in criminal justice. Now you're in shelter, right? Or you might have a bachelor's in I don't know, healthcare. And you're like, I don't want to do that. And you end up here. Needless to say, a lot of this job is hands-on training. right? There's
Mm-hmm.
no degree out there that I think can adequately
Yep.
prepare you, and I have tons of them.
Yeah, you
None of
do.
them adequately, none of them adequately prepared
Yeah.
me for the things that you see, like in shelters, in community, around
Yeah.
shelters, sometimes even in supportive housing, right? They didn't prepare me. However, I was able to learn with certain people, and I had mentors coming up and supervisors that were amazing. But one thing that Shinny did was they launched the Relish program, which I want you to speak a little bit about because I love it. I happen to be a mentor in this
Yay.
program, but
So
I love the
happy.
program. I love the concept of it. And it's so funny because I put two staff through it. This cohort that's almost wrapping up, and I'm already thinking of the
The
next
next
people to
one.
try to apply for the next cohort. So talk to us a little bit about what is Relish and why you guys decided to even create it.
Yeah, whew, what a journey. Thank you so much for bringing this up, and thank you so much for being a mentor in the program. Just, you're so like aspirational. I'm like, yes, let's get Dr. X here, right? And sometimes I'm like, I know exactly who to put you in, although I don't do the matching, but sometimes I see people and I'm like, yeah, because I see that energy, right? And you're like, you never not working. But
That's true. That's true.
so many. I'm like, you got a podcast, girl? What? All right, but no, seriously. So a few years ago, actually, we didn't just decide to do a professional development program. That really wasn't what happened. But as a membership organization, we respond to the needs of our members. And so a few years ago, actually well, it was during the uprisings, right? During the 2020 uprisings after the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and so many other folks that we have been seeing dying at the hands of police, dying in the streets,
Yeah.
murders blasted out all over the front news for people to see. And there was a reckoning, a racial reckoning happening within the world, the community, nonprofit sector, everywhere. Every single sector was hit by this reckoning, including ours. And so a member came up to us and was like, hey, you are a membership organization. I am
Mm-hmm.
stepping into a leadership role as a Black executive director in this space, and I don't know any other Black executive directors in this space. And he said, every person I ask, give me the same three people. They give me the same three people to go talk to. He's like, these can't be the
It can't be
only
the only three.
Black
It can't be the only three.
executive directors in the nonprofit supportive housing sector. Like, this is wild. So,
Right.
so he came to us with a challenge, really, and said, you as a membership organization, leader in the sector, like, what are you doing to sort of advance equity within the field, right? This nonprofit industrial complex that there was a report that had come out too, not too long ago, that looked at the leadership of nonprofits, primarily white. I'm
Yeah.
not going to spout off any of the statistics because I don't know them offhand, but it was primarily
Yeah.
white. And even if we're looking within the nonprofit, the supportive housing sector, you're looking at your direct service workforce, primarily Black and brown, primarily women of color.
Yes.
You're looking at your tenant population, primarily Black and brown, primarily Black folk living in your living in your sector, and you look at your leadership, and it's primarily white. So there's an imbalance here,
And a little not even, right? Just a little
a little bit,
unbalanced. Just a
little bit.
little
Yeah. And so I embarked on this after this challenge. I embarked on this journey. I did a very like very unprofessional audit of our membership. I was just like looking at people's LinkedIn, looking online. I was like, okay, let me see how many within our membership, how many folks are in decision making positions, right?
Yeah.
C-suite and above, right?
Yeah.
And did that audit, and we decided to get those folks together, not only for this mentorship for this person who was stepping into a leadership role and wanted some guidance and some community, but for everybody else too. And so we had our very first meeting of the Racial Equity and Supportive Housing Work Group, aka RESH. We had our very first meeting in November, I think, of 2020. And let me tell you something, Dr. X. It was like a coming to Jesus moment. People were in that Zoom room and was just like, I'm so happy to be here. And these were all like, leaders in the field.
Uh-huh.
C-suite and above. And they were so excited to be in community and in partnership with each other. It was just a lot of raw emotion. I was almost crying. It was crazy in the professional world to feel that type of energy. And so we started to work together over the next several months, and we started to think about what are the things preventing folks, from, specifically Black folks, from advancing in this sector up to
Yeah.
C-suite levels and above. What are some of the things impacting our workforce? And so we started to do a lot of different things together. We put on a couple of clinics about the COVID vaccine, trying to dispel some myths and just get people the information that they needed to, because there was a lot of, I'm not going to get into all that, but there was a lot of that going on. um, and then we did a couple brown bag lunch and learns. We did some workforce advocacy, and really tried to get folks engaged in workforce advocacy. And then what really came out of that was a desire to create this professional development program that would pair folks who are ready to elevate, but just needed that extra. And it wasn't a degree. It wasn't years of experience. It really was it was like mentorship. It was community. What do we need to do to get people to elevate to the next step? And so that's where the Readying Emerging Leaders in Supportive Housing program was developed. And we're 4 years and counting now. We've graduated 120 scholars. We've consistently seen our mentor community grow and expand and gel and mesh together. And folks have really found community within that program, not just the mentors and not just the mentorship either, but just within their cohort. Folks have really found community. They have expressed that they've stayed in the sector, stayed in the field because of this program. We've seen people become advocates, speaking at rallies, drafting op-eds, going on to go back to school or start teaching. Or we've seen so much growth and development come through this program that it heartens me. Shout out to the other Relish founders. It's been
Listen,
beautiful.
I love it. I love the space. I love shout out to all my mentees. They probably listen. I've already had 3 in the 2 years I've been there. I love it. And again, my staff, oh God, my staff went this year and they came back brand new people. That's why I said, oh, let me send some more people to Relish, because they came back. I mean, I knew when they were in sessions, you know how your schedule is moving fast so you can't even pay attention to your, I knew they would start texting me from their Friday work groups, right? Or work classes. And they'll be like, did you know this? And this is, and I'm like, I'm aware. But they were just so excited about what they were learning and who they were connecting with. And so I'm really excited. And I think Relish is a great idea. And I'm wishing it much luck. And I hope nobody comes for Relish ever.
We'll be good. We'll be good. We'll be good.
Good.
We're gonna
All right, so
continue until they tell us to stop.
Even if they tell us to stop, we'll find a new way around.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we wrap it up, tell people on the call how they can get involved with Shinny, or if they can at all, with policies and everything, or just in general.
Yeah, well, if you're a network member already, then you should be signed up for all of our email blasts. And if you think you're a network member but you're not sure, you can go to our website, shnny.org, look at our member list, see if your organization is up there, and if so, then you have access to all of the wonderful things that we're able to do. You can sign up for our listserv on our website, or you can contact me directly. Do I put my email out in this thing? That's crazy.
No, you don't have to.
Put it in the show notes. Put it in the show notes. Sign up for our newsletter, for our email blast. Follow the Network NY at the Network NY on social media platforms. There's a lot of information that we post on our Instagram account, our LinkedIn account. We do a lot. We're a tiny but mighty team, and we have our hand in every single aspect of supportive housing development that you could think of.
Awesome. Tierra, thank you. Thank
you, sis. Hey, this was fun.
For joining me
This
today.
was my first podcast. I've never done a podcast
Oh my God, is
before.
it? Welcome to the podcast world.
My two worlds colliding. I love this. Policy, poetry, and podcasts. That's like my thing.
Yes, that is. Listen, thank you for coming. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for always having fun and always enjoying having good conversations with me. Looking forward to our continual working relationship, and so much
Absolutely.
more, right? We have
So
so
much
much to
more.
give.
So much
Yeah,
more.
to give the world and to give everybody. So for those listening, thank y'all for tuning in. Thank you for joining another episode of One Step Away. Try to have a good day. Try to smile at somebody today, and spread some spring cheer. I feel like this is coming out in spring. Spring cheer at this point. And remember, everyone, that we are all just one step away.